Imagine standing in front of a mirror, staring deep into your own eyes, asking yourself a question you've been too afraid to face: why does my kindness never change them? You've given love, patience, understanding, yet the narcissist remains untouched, unmoved, as if your efforts vanish into a black hole of entitlement and manipulation. Why? Because kindness doesn't heal a narcissist, it feeds them. And the longer you wait, hoping they'll wake up and see your worth, the deeper you sink into their illusion. But what if I told you their asterisk is asterisk, a way to break free, a way to reclaim your mind, your power, your very sense of self? What if, in the next few moments, you could learn the one shift that turns the entire dynamic on its head, one move that doesn't just protect you, but forces them to reveal who they really are? And no, it's not revenge, it's not cruelty, and it's definitely not playing their game. It's something far more powerful. But before we get there, let me ask you, have you ever felt like you were living in someone else's movie, cast in the role of the devoted, suffering character while they basked in the spotlight? Let's rewrite that script. Imagine standing in front of someone you love, someone you've given everything to, your time, your energy, your heart, only to realize they see none of it. They don't feel your kindness the way you feel it. They don't absorb it, they don't reflect it back. Instead, they consume it, as if it were their birthright, as if you were placed in their world for the sole purpose of feeding their endless need for validation. You tell yourself that if you love them harder, if you show more compassion, if you are just a little more patient, they will finally wake up. They will finally see you. But what if I told you that your kindness is not melting their defenses? What if it's doing the exact opposite, cementing them? What if right now, at this very moment, you're not healing them, you're helping them stay exactly as they are? And what if I told you the very thing you believe will change them is the thing that's keeping you trapped? This is the brutal truth most people don't want to hear. Kindness does not break a narcissist. It fuels them. It validates their world, their control, their power. And here's where it gets even more twisted. Your kindness does not just feed their ego, it convinces them that their version of reality is correct. Think about that for a second. Every time you show them grace after they hurt you, every time you forgive without real change, every time you shrink yourself to avoid conflict, you are confirming to them that they hold the power. They do not see these gestures as love. They see them as reinforcement that they can do whatever they want, whenever they want, and you will always be there offering more. They do not receive kindness as an invitation to change. They receive it as proof that they never have to. But let me ask you something. If someone only values you when you tolerate their mistreatment, what does that say about them? And more importantly, what does that say about what you've been taught to accept? It's easy to believe that kindness is always the answer because in a healthy relationship, it is. In a world where people are emotionally balanced, where reciprocity exists, kindness builds bridges. But what happens when you try to build a bridge with someone who thrives on watching you struggle? What happens when they don't want to meet you halfway, but instead enjoy watching you exhaust yourself trying? What happens when they don't care about the effort, only the control it gives them? This is where kindness stops being a virtue and starts being a trap. And before you say, but they've had a hard life, or they just need love, I need you to ask yourself, how much love is enough? How many times do you need to prove your goodness before it finally matters? And here's the real question: when will you matter? You see, a narcissist thrives in an environment where they don't have to self-reflect. They exist in a world where they are the hero, the victim, and the ruler all at once. They are never the problem, everyone else is. And the moment you try to introduce accountability into their world, what happens? They twist the narrative. They make you doubt yourself. They make you feel like you're the one who is too sensitive, too demanding, too much. They rewrite reality until you start believing that maybe, just maybe, they're right. And that right there is the moment you lose yourself. Because when you start questioning your own perception, when you start prioritizing their comfort over your truth, you are no longer living your own life, you are living in theirs. And that is exactly where they want you to be. But let me ask you something: when was the last time they worried about your feelings? Now here's where it gets really dangerous. The longer you stay in this cycle, the harder it becomes to leave. Not because you don't want to, but because you start believing that your love has a purpose. That maybe if you just hold on a little longer, they will see you. That one day they will wake up and say, I can't believe how much this person has done for me. I need to change. But let me tell you something that might shake you: that day will never come. Because in their world, change is not necessary. Growth is not necessary. And why would it be? They have you. They have your love. They have your kindness. And they have the comfort of knowing that no matter what they do, no matter how much they push, you will still be there trying, hoping, waiting. But waiting for what? It's a terrifying thing to realize that the person you love may never be capable of loving you the same way. It's a painful truth that most people avoid because facing it means making a choice: stay and keep believing in a fantasy, or wake up and take back your power. And let me be clear, this is not just about romantic relationships. This could be a parent, a friend, a boss, a sibling. The dynamic is the same. The effect is the same. And the longer you stay, the more you start losing the most valuable thing you have: yourself. Because here's the real cost of loving a narcissist. It's not just the pain, the confusion, or the exhaustion. It's the slow erosion of who you are. But here's the part most people don't talk about. The moment you stop playing their game, everything shifts. The moment you stop responding the way they expect, they panic. They lash out. They try to pull you back in, not because they love you, but because they love what you give them: your energy, your attention, your emotional investment. And this is where most people make the mistake of thinking, maybe they do care, maybe this means they finally see me. No, what it means is that they feel the power slipping. And a narcissist without power is like a fire without oxygen. It cannot survive. But here's the question: will you keep feeding the fire, or will you finally step away? You might be thinking, but what if I just explain it to them? What if I help them understand? Let me stop you right there. You cannot teach someone self-awareness if their entire identity depends on avoiding it. You cannot force growth in someone who believes they are already superior. You cannot pour love into a person who only knows how to take. And I know that's hard to hear, but what's harder? Spending another year, 5 years, 10 years waiting for something that will never happen. Waking up one day and realizing that in all your efforts to save them, you forgot to save yourself. Because let me tell you, the most painful moment in this journey is not when they betray you. It's not when they manipulate you. It's when you look in the mirror and realize that the person staring back no longer knows who they are. And let's be honest, we've all been conditioned to believe that if we just love harder, if we just hold on, if we just endure, things will get better. But where did we learn that? Who taught us that our worth is measured by how much pain we can withstand? And here's the deeper question: what if the love you're giving them is the love you need? What if the kindness you keep pouring into them is the very thing you've been depriving yourself of? Because here's the truth: what you tolerate teaches others how to treat you. And the moment you realize that, everything changes. But let me ask you, are you ready for that change? You've tried everything. You've reasoned, you've explained, you've poured love into the cracks, hoping something will finally change. But it never does. No matter how much you give, no matter how much you prove your loyalty, they still find a way to twist your words, invalidate your feelings, and make you question your own reality. And so you try harder. You hold on tighter, because deep down you believe that if you just show them enough love, if you just explain things the right way, if you can just reach them, then maybe, just maybe, they will finally see you. But what if I told you that's not how this works? What if I told you that every emotional reaction you give them is not bringing you closer, it's feeding their control? And what if I told you that the most powerful thing you could ever do is not love them harder, not fix them, not explain yourself one more time, but detach? This is the truth most people don't want to accept. The only way to break the cycle is to stop playing the game. And that doesn't mean screaming at them, exposing them, or getting revenge. That's still emotional investment. That's still giving them your energy. No, the real power move is emotional detachment. It's removing your reactions, your explanations, your need for closure. It's recognizing that they thrive on your emotions, whether it's love, anger, or pain, because it confirms that they still have access to you. And here's where it gets even more unsettling: narcissists don't care whether your emotions are positive or negative. As long as they can trigger a reaction, they win. Because a reaction means you're still in the game. And if you're still in the game, they are still in control. But let me ask you something: how much longer are you willing to let someone else pull the strings on your emotions? Now, this is where people struggle, because emotional detachment feels unnatural when you care deeply. It feels impossible when you've spent so much time believing that love means holding on, that relationships are about working through things, that people can change if you just give them enough time. But here's the truth: some people don't change because they don't have to. Why would they? If their behavior gets them what they want, if they can manipulate, guilt, or charm their way into keeping you around, what incentive do they have to be different? And the moment you realize that, the moment you stop hoping for that breakthrough moment where they finally get it, something shifts inside of you. The power they had starts to crack, because their entire strategy has been built on one thing: your reaction. Take that away and suddenly they don't know what to do. But here's where it gets interesting. The moment you stop reacting, the moment you stop explaining yourself, they panic. At first, they will try to provoke you, poke at your insecurities, bring up the past, remind you of every mistake you've ever made. If that doesn't work, they'll switch tactics. Maybe they suddenly become kind, apologetic, even vulnerable, as if they've finally seen the light. Maybe they tell you everything you've ever wanted to hear. And for a second, you'll wonder, is this it? Have they really changed? But let me ask you something. Why did it take losing control of you for them to finally act right? And if their change is real, why does it only appear when they feel you slipping away? The answer is simple. They don't miss you. They miss the power they had over you. And the second they get it back, the cycle will start all over again. This is why emotional detachment is so powerful. It's not just about ignoring them. It's about truly, deeply removing the part of you that seeks their validation. It's about no longer needing them to understand your pain, no longer needing them to admit what they did, no longer needing them to give you the closure they will never give. And that is terrifying for them. Because when they can't make you mad, when they can't make you cry, when they can't guilt you into staying, they lose their grip. And this is where you see the real them. No more charm, no more sweet words, just the raw, exposed truth of what they really are without your energy to sustain them. And let me warn you, when they realize they're losing control, they don't go quietly. You might notice they suddenly become desperate. They start making wild accusations, trying to turn people against you, creating chaos just to get some kind of reaction. They might play the victim, twisting the story so they look like the one who was hurt. And if that doesn't work, they might try to hoover you back in, showing up unexpectedly, sending messages that pull at your heart, acting as if they've changed overnight. And this is the moment where most people slip. Because when you've spent so much time in the cycle, when your brain has been conditioned to seek those crumbs of affection, the pull to go back feels overwhelming. But let me ask you, how many times have they done this before? And how many times has it ever truly changed? You see, emotional detachment is not just about cutting contact. It's about reprogramming your mind, breaking the belief that this person holds any power over you. It's about realizing that the moment you stop needing their approval, their apologies, their validation, you win. And when you finally detach, when you truly let go, you don't just free yourself from them, you free yourself from the version of you that kept accepting less than you deserved. And that is when the real transformation begins. But here's what no one tells you: detaching isn't easy. At first, it feels unnatural. Your mind will crave the old patterns, the familiar highs and lows. You'll have moments of doubt, moments where you wonder if maybe, just maybe, you were too harsh. But this is where you have to hold the line. Because every time you let them pull you back in, you reinforce the belief that they still have access to you. And the longer you hold on, the harder it becomes to break free. So let me ask you, are you really willing to give them one more chance? Or is it finally time to take your power back? And here's the thing: detachment is not about becoming cold or shutting down your emotions. It's about reclaiming control over where you invest your energy. It's about understanding that not everyone deserves access to your mind, your heart, your peace. Because here's the truth: your emotions are your currency. And when you keep spending them on someone who only drains you, you are left bankrupt. And what do? They walk away full, only to return when they need more. But what happens when you stop being their emotional supply? At first, they will try to convince you that you're heartless, that you've changed, that you're the problem. And for a moment, you might wonder if they're right. But let me tell you, setting boundaries is not cruelty. Protecting your peace is not selfish. Choosing yourself is not wrong. Because for too long, you've been conditioned to believe that love means sacrifice, that kindness means endurance, that if you just prove yourself enough, they will finally appreciate you. But here's the truth: the right people don't need to be convinced to treat you well. And the moment you understand that, everything shifts. But let me ask you, what will happen when they can no longer manipulate you? When their words, their games, their guilt trips no longer hold weight? At first, they will try to find another way in, testing to see if there's any part of you that still wants to believe in them. And if you give them even the smallest opening, they will take it. But if you don't, if you truly stand firm, that's when something incredible happens. They stop seeing you as a source of energy. They stop getting what they need from you. And slowly they fade. Not because they've changed, not because they've grown, but because without your reactions, without your pain, without your constant supply of attention, they have nothing. There comes a moment when you realize that no matter how much you give, no matter how much you bend, no matter how much you sacrifice, it will never be enough. You've explained yourself 1,000 times. You've forgiven things that should have never been forgiven. You've stayed in situations that drained you, convinced that if you just held on a little longer, things would change. But they don't. Instead, the cycle continues. The disrespect, the manipulation, the excuses, it all keeps happening, as if your pain is invisible. And then it hits you. They aren't changing because they don't have to. They aren't taking accountability because there are no real consequences. They aren't respecting your boundaries because you haven't truly enforced them. But what if you did? What if, instead of explaining yourself one more time, you simply walked away from the conversation? What if, instead of tolerating disrespect, you removed access? What if, instead of proving your worth, you realized that the only people who deserve to be in your life are the ones who already see it? This is where everything shifts. Because narcissists and manipulators thrive in environments without boundaries. They test limits, push buttons, and see how far they can go before you finally snap. And the truth is, they aren't just paying attention to your words, they're watching your actions. Every time they disrespect you and you let it slide, every time they break a promise and you stay, every time they hurt you and you justify it, you are silently teaching them that they can. That there are no real repercussions. That no matter what they do, they will always be able to find a way back in. And this is why boundaries are so powerful. Because the moment you stop tolerating what you once excused, the moment you stop allowing access without accountability, they are forced to do something they've spent their whole lives avoiding face themselves. And this is where things get interesting. Because the second you enforce boundaries, they will test you. Hard. First, they'll act confused. Why are you being so distant? Why are you overreacting? Then they'll shift to guilt. After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me. And if that doesn't work, they'll turn to anger. You've changed. You're selfish. No one else would put up with you. Because in their mind, your boundaries are not just limits, they are rejection. They are the end of their ability to control you. And let me ask you, what happens when someone who has always been in control starts losing it? Do they accept it? Do they self-reflect? Or do they fight even harder to break you down? You see, when you first set a boundary, they won't believe you. They assume it's temporary, that you'll give in just like you always have. So they push. They provoke. They do everything in their power to make you question yourself. Because if they can get you to doubt your own strength, if they can make you feel guilty for choosing yourself, then they win. And here's where most people make the mistake. They confuse discomfort with doing something wrong. They mistake their fear of losing someone toxic for a sign that they should let them back in. But let me ask you, if enforcing a boundary feels wrong, isn't that proof that you've spent too long living without them? But let's talk about the deeper reason boundaries work. Because it's not just about keeping bad people out. It's about protecting the version of you that is finally waking up. The version of you that is tired of being drained, tired of being used, tired of feeling like you have to earn love that should have been freely given. The moment you start enforcing boundaries, you're telling yourself, I matter. My peace matters. My voice matters. And when someone tries to guilt you for that, when they try to make you feel like you're asking for too much, that is all the confirmation you need that they were benefiting from your lack of limits. But let me ask you, when was the last time they respected your needs without a fight? And here's the harsh truth: some people will leave when you enforce boundaries. Not because you did something wrong, but because they never intended to respect you in the first place. They only stayed because they could get away with mistreating you. They only stayed because there were no consequences. And the moment they realize that access to you now requires accountability, they will either rise to meet you or they will disappear. And as painful as that is, as much as you may want to hold on, let me ask you, why would you want to keep someone who only wanted you when they could use you? Now, this is the part where fear creeps in. Because when you've spent years making excuses for someone, when you've convinced yourself that they can be better, the idea of letting go feels impossible. Your brain will tell you, but what if this time is different? What if they finally change? And I need you to hear me, real change does not come from words. It does not come from temporary remorse, love bombing, or false promises. Real change is uncomfortable. It requires accountability. And most importantly, it does not need to be begged for. And if the only time they even pretend to care is when they feel you pulling away, let me ask you, do they actually care about you, or do they just care about what they're losing? And let's talk about why boundaries force accountability. Because the moment you stop explaining, the moment you stop justifying, the moment you simply state your boundary and enforce it without discussion, they are left with only two options: respect it or leave. There is no more arguing, no more convincing, no more bending to make them comfortable. And that is terrifying for them. Because without your energy, without your willingness to keep engaging in their games, they are forced to sit with themselves. And for someone who has spent their entire life avoiding self-reflection, there is nothing more unsettling. But let me ask you, why should their discomfort be more important than your peace? Now, this is the part where you may start to feel guilty, because setting boundaries means standing firm in your worth. And for people who have spent years minimizing themselves, that feels unnatural. You'll have moments where you think, maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe I should just let this slide. But let me remind you, every time you break your own boundary, you send a message to yourself that your needs don't matter. And every time you let someone cross a line, you teach them that the line was never real. So let me ask you, how many times have you betrayed yourself just to keep someone else comfortable? But here's where it all changes. Because once you start enforcing boundaries, something incredible happens. You start attracting different people. People who respect your time, your space, your energy. People who don't need to be convinced to treat you well. People who see your worth without you having to suffer first. And suddenly you look back at the people who fought against your boundaries, and you wonder, why did I ever think that was love? Because real love does not demand self-sacrifice. Real love does not require you to shrink. Real love does not punish you for having standards. But let me ask you, how much longer are you willing to settle for anything less? They expect you to care. That's how they keep you hooked. They thrive on the idea that your emotions, your reactions, your attention, whether positive or negative, are still tied to them. Every fight, every explanation, every desperate attempt to make them understand. That's fuel. That's proof that they still have a hold on you. But what happens when you stop giving them what they crave? What happens when, instead of anger, you give them silence? Instead of chasing, you walk away. Instead of proving your worth, you recognize that no one who truly values you would need convincing. What happens when you become indifferent? This is where the game shifts. Because if there's one thing a narcissist or manipulator cannot handle, it's irrelevance. They can handle hatred. They can handle arguments. They can handle tears. What they cannot handle is indifference. Because when you become indifferent, you are no longer playing by their rules. You are no longer giving them what they want. And that is when the mask starts to slip. That is when the cracks begin to show. That is when they realize, maybe for the first time, that their power over you is gone. But let me ask you, how many times have they pulled you back in just when you were about to walk away? How many times have they sensed your detachment and suddenly transformed into everything you ever wanted? And how many times did it last? This is why indifference is so powerful, because it removes their ability to manipulate you. It takes away their ability to control your emotions, to dictate your mood, to push and pull you whenever they please. And this is where people struggle, because indifference is not just about ignoring them. It's about genuinely not caring about what they do anymore. It's about realizing that their approval is meaningless, their attention is empty, and their validation is not something you need to chase. And the moment they sense that shift in you, everything changes. At first, they won't believe it. They'll test you. They'll try everything they can to provoke a reaction. Maybe they'll push your buttons, bringing up the past, saying the things they know will trigger you. Maybe they'll try to guilt trip you, playing the victim, making you question if you're the one who's being unfair. And if that doesn't work, they might suddenly become charming again, acting as if they've changed, as if they've finally realized what they had. And for a second, you'll wonder, is this real? Have they finally woken up? But let me ask you, why did it take losing control over you for them to act right? And if they were capable of change all along, why did they only choose to show it now? Because here's the truth: when someone genuinely cares about you, they don't wait until you're slipping away to treat you right. They don't wait until you stop reacting to suddenly show respect. They don't wait until you're indifferent to finally acknowledge your worth. And once you see that, once you truly understand that their behavior has never been about love, it's been about control, something inside you shifts. The power they had over you begins to crumble. Because now you're not looking at them through the lens of hope or nostalgia or what ifs. You're seeing them for who they truly are. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. But let me warn you, this is when they panic, because their entire sense of control has been built on your reactions. As long as they could make you angry, they had power. As long as they could make you cry, they had influence. As long as they could make you explain yourself, they still mattered in your world. But when they look at you and see nothing, when they throw out their usual tactics and you don't even flinch, that is when they truly realize they have lost. But do they accept it? Do they walk away gracefully? Or do they scramble, desperately trying to claw their way back in? This is where you will see their true nature. If they can't manipulate you with charm, they'll try fear. If they can't get a reaction through guilt, they'll create chaos. Maybe they'll spread rumors. Maybe they'll suddenly act like you never matter to them at all. Maybe they'll go out of their way to hurt you, hoping that somewhere deep down you still care. Because as long as they can make you react even in pain, they win. And this is where you have to hold your ground. Because the second you let them back in, even for a moment, even for an explanation, you've given them what they wanted all along, proof that you still care. But let me ask you, how many times have you given them another chance only to regret it? And here's where the real shift happens. Because when you finally stop reacting, when you finally stop needing them to understand, when you finally stop explaining your worth, you free yourself. You free yourself from the cycle. You free yourself from the emotional highs and lows. You free yourself from the version of you that was still waiting for their validation. And suddenly, they're not this powerful, all-consuming force in your life anymore. They're just someone. Someone who no longer holds weight in your world. And that is what destroys them. Because the one thing they never expected was for you to outgrow them. They never expected you to wake up one day and realize that their opinion means nothing. That their approval is not worth chasing. That their love, if you could even call it that, was never love at all. And when they see that they have lost the ability to control your emotions, they have lost the ability to control you. But let me ask you, how many more chances are you willing to give someone who only values you when they feel they're losing you? And here's the thing about indifference, it's not just about ignoring them. It's about shifting your entire mindset. It's about no longer being emotionally invested in someone who has only ever drained you. It's about realizing that their presence or their absence makes no difference to your peace. And that is what makes them powerless. Because a manipulator without control is nothing. A narcissist without a reaction is irrelevant. And once you reach that place where their words, their actions, their entire existence no longer affect you, that is when you know you've won. But let's talk about why this works. Because the truth is, people like this don't seek love, they seek control. They don't want connection, they want dominance. And if you really pay attention, you'll notice that their patterns have always been about keeping you attached, not about actually caring for you. This is why they create confusion, why they mix kindness with cruelty, why they keep you guessing, because as long as you're trying to figure them out, as long as you're seeking clarity, as long as you're reacting, you are still emotionally invested. But the second you stop, the second you accept that you don't need to understand them, that you don't need closure, that you don't need anything from them, that's when you take your power back. But let me ask you, how much longer are you willing to let them live in your mind rent-free? And here's the real test. Because once you become indifferent, once you truly detach, the universe has a way of testing you. They will sense it. And right when you think you're free, right when you feel like you've finally moved on, they will reappear. A message, a phone call, a coincidental run-in. And for a split second, your heart will race. Your mind will wonder, should I respond? Should I hear them out? And in that moment, you have a choice. Do you open the door and step back into the cycle? Or do you smile, shake your head, and walk away for good? Because at the end of the day, their greatest fear is not your hatred. It's not your anger. It's not even your absence. It's the moment they realize you simply don't care anymore. And when that moment comes, that is when you finally win. There comes a moment when you realize that the pain you've been carrying isn't just from what they did, it's from what you allowed. It's from the moments you ignored your intuition, the times you gave them another chance when you knew better, the endless cycle of betrayal and false hope. And you ask yourself, why did I stay? Why did I tolerate so much? And then it hits you, not because you were weak, not because you were naive, but because deep down you didn't fully believe you deserved better. Because if you truly saw your worth, if you truly knew your value, their manipulation wouldn't have worked. Their mind games wouldn't have affected you. Their tactics would have been useless. So what happens when you finally wake up to your own worth? Everything shifts. Because the moment you recognize your value, you stop negotiating it. You stop explaining why you deserve respect. You stop waiting for someone to treat you right when they've already shown you who they are. And let me ask you, how many times have they proven that they don't care about your feelings, yet you kept hoping they would change? How many times have you made excuses for behavior that disrespected you? But here's the real question, why were you willing to fight so hard for someone who never fought for you? The truth is, manipulation only works on those who are searching for validation outside of themselves. It works on those who believe they need someone else to complete them, to make them feel loved, to give them a sense of worth. And that's why they picked you. Because they saw your kindness, your empathy, your willingness to give even when you were receiving nothing in return. But what happens when you stop seeking validation from them? What happens when you no longer need their approval, their attention, their crumbs of affection? What happens when you become whole on your own? At first, they won't believe it. They'll test you. They'll throw out their usual tactics, love bombing, guilt trips, playing the victim just to see if they can still get a reaction. Because in their world, your self-worth is a threat. It disrupts the control they had over you. It forces them to face a truth. They've spent their entire lives avoiding you are not their puppet, and they were never as powerful as they thought. But let me ask you, when was the last time they truly took responsibility for their actions? And if they never have, what makes you think they will now? This is where people get stuck. Because self-worth is not just about knowing you deserve better, it's about choosing better. It's about walking away even when it hurts. It's about breaking the cycle even when your heart still wants to hold on. And that's what they don't expect. They expect you to hesitate, to second guess, to miss them. Because that's what has always happened before. But this time is different. This time you're not waiting for closure. You're not waiting for them to change. You're not waiting for an apology that will never come. And that is what breaks the cycle. But let's talk about why this is so hard. Because when you've spent years defining yourself through their approval, walking away feels like losing a part of yourself. It feels like losing a battle you fought so hard to win. And in those moments of weakness, your mind will whisper, maybe I overreacted. Maybe they weren't that bad. Maybe if I just tried one more time. But let me ask you, how many times has one more time turned into months, years, decades of the same pain? And here's where everything changes. Because once you step into your worth, once you truly see yourself, you start attracting people who reflect that. People who respect you without needing to be convinced. People who value you without you having to suffer first. And suddenly you look back at the person you once fought so hard to keep, and you wonder, why did I ever think that was love? Because love does not make you beg. Love does not punish you for having boundaries. Love does not thrive on control. But let me ask you, if someone truly cared, would you have to fight this hard just to be treated decently? But this is the part where fear kicks in. Because stepping into your worth means stepping into the unknown. It means breaking patterns that have been ingrained in you for years. It means trusting yourself even when everything in you wants to go back to what's familiar. But let me tell you something, the pain of walking away is temporary. The pain of staying, that's a lifetime. And when you really think about it, what are you actually afraid of losing? Someone who never valued you. Someone who only gave you love when it benefited them. Someone who made you question your own reality. Or are you actually afraid of being alone with yourself? Because that's the real test of self-worth. It's not just about leaving them behind, it's about who you become when they are no longer shaping your sense of value. It's about what happens when you no longer let their opinions define you, their approval dictate your happiness, their presence determine your self-esteem. And let me ask you, who were you before they convinced you that you were not enough? This is where true freedom begins. Because once you build your self-worth from the inside, you become untouchable. Their manipulation no longer works because you no longer need their validation. Their gaslighting falls flat because you trust your own reality. Their absence doesn't hurt because you no longer measure your value by who chooses to stay. And when they realize they can no longer control you, they will do everything they can to regain their power. But let me ask you, if their love was real, why would they only fight for you when they feel like they're losing you? But let's talk about the most dangerous lie of all, the idea that you need to be good enough for them to treat you right. Because that's the trap, isn't it? If only you were more patient, more understanding, more loving, then they would finally see your worth. But that's not how this works. Because the people who truly love you, they don't make you earn it. They don't withhold affection as a form of control. They don't turn love into a power struggle. But let me ask you, if you have to prove your worth to someone, is it even love at all? They don't fear losing you. They fear losing control over you. Let that sink in for a second. Because if they truly valued you, if they truly cared about your presence in their life, they would have treated you with the love and respect you deserve from the start. But that's not what happened, is it? They took you for granted. They tested how much they could get away with. They pushed boundaries, manipulated emotions, and thrived on the power they held over you. But the moment you stopped reacting the way they expected, the moment you stopped playing by their rules, their entire world started to shake. And that's when you saw it, their real weakness. Because their strength was never in who they were. It was in how much control they had over you. So what happens when you take that control away? At first, they don't believe it. They think it's a phase. They assume you'll come back just like you always have. Maybe you're just trying to prove a point. Maybe you're trying to make them miss you, but in their mind, you're still theirs. And so they wait. They test the waters with little jabs, little provocations designed to get a reaction. Maybe they ignore you to see if you'll chase. Maybe they suddenly act sweet and apologetic, hoping to pull you back in. Or maybe they act like you never mattered at all, pretending they've already moved on. But let me ask you, how many times have they done this before? And how many times did it work? This is where the shift happens. Because for the first time, you're not reacting. You're not explaining yourself. You're not trying to make them see your worth. And that terrifies them. Because without your emotions fueling their game, without your reactions feeding their ego, they're powerless. And that's the one thing they never prepared for. Because if you really think about it, every single tactic they've used, whether it was love bombing, gaslighting, guilt-tripping, silent treatment, was designed for one purpose: to keep you emotionally invested. To make sure that no matter how much they hurt you, you would still care. But now you don't. And they can feel it. But this is where they get desperate. Because when the usual tricks stop working, they have to level up. They have to find new ways to pull you back in. Maybe they create drama, hoping to bait you into defending yourself. Maybe they suddenly act like they've changed, hoping to lure you into another cycle. Or maybe, just maybe, they try to make you jealous, posting pictures, dropping hints, making it seem like they've replaced you overnight. But here's the truth: they haven't moved on. Because if they had, they wouldn't need to make sure you see it. Real moving on doesn't require an audience. And if they were truly happy without you, they wouldn't be so focused on making sure you know it. But let me ask you, how many times have they used jealousy to manipulate you before? And how many times did you fall for it? This is where you start to see the cracks. Because suddenly, they're the ones who are unstable. They're the ones who seem lost, confused, out of control. They're scrambling, trying to regain the upper hand. And the more indifferent you become, the more desperate they get. Because their greatest fear is not your anger. It's not your hatred. It's not even your absence. It's your indifference. Because as long as you care, as long as you react, they still have power over you. But when you stop caring, when you stop needing anything from them, whether it's love, closure, or even an apology, that's when they truly lose. And that is their real weakness. But let's talk about why this is so hard. Because breaking free from their control doesn't just mean walking away physically. It means breaking the mental chains they've placed on you. It means unlearning the belief that their validation determines your worth. It means resisting the urge to explain yourself when they twist the narrative. It means accepting that they will never see the truth the way you do, and more importantly, that they don't need to. Because let me ask you, why do you still feel the need to prove yourself to someone who never valued you to begin with? And this is where the real power shift happens. Because the moment you stop seeking their understanding, the moment you stop hoping they'll finally get it, you take away the last piece of control they had left. And suddenly, they're exposed. Without you feeding into their manipulations, without you justifying yourself, without you explaining why you deserve better, they are left alone with the truth. And they can't handle that. Because the truth is, they needed you more than you ever needed them. But this is where they try to rewrite history. They'll start telling people you were the problem. They'll play the victim, twisting the story to make themselves look innocent. Maybe they'll say you were crazy, that you overreacted, that you were too emotional. And the worst part, some people will believe them, because manipulators are skilled at playing the innocent role when they need to. But let me ask you, if they were truly the victim, why are they so desperate to convince everyone of it? And why are they still so focused on you, even after you've walked away? And here's where your biggest test comes in. Because when they realize they've lost control, they will try to trigger you one last time. Maybe they'll reach out with a fake apology. Maybe they'll send a cruel message, hoping to get a reaction. Maybe they'll do something so outrageous, so infuriating, that you'll feel compelled to respond. And in that moment, you will be tempted. You will want to defend yourself. You will want to set the record straight. But let me ask you, who benefits from that? Because the second you engage, the second you let them pull you back in, they win. And you end up right back where you started. But this time you see the game for what it is. And instead of reacting, instead of explaining, instead of falling into their trap, you smile. Because you finally understand their power was never real. It only existed because you gave it to them. And now you're taking it back. Because the truth is, they were never strong. They were never powerful. They were never in control. They just convinced you that they were. But now that illusion has shattered. And when they look at you and realize they can no longer affect you, they can no longer manipulate you, they can no longer make you question yourself, that is the moment they truly lose. There comes a moment when you realize that staying is no longer an option. Maybe it's the 100th time they've disrespected you. Maybe it's the moment you catch yourself making excuses for their actions again. Or maybe, just maybe, it's the silent, gut-wrenching realization that the love you were fighting for never actually existed. And that's when the fear creeps in. If I walk away, am I giving up? Am I the one who lost? That's what they want you to believe. They want you to feel like leaving is failure, like cutting ties is surrender, like choosing yourself means you lost them. But what if I told you that walking away isn't losing? What if I told you that walking away is the ultimate power move? What if I told you that leaving isn't the end? It's the beginning of something greater than you ever imagined. At first, the thought of leaving feels impossible because you invested so much. You built your life around them. You sacrificed. You forgave. You gave them parts of yourself you never gave to anyone else. And they knew that. They counted on it. They counted on the fact that you would stay, no matter how much they took, no matter how much they drained you. Because as long as you stayed, they won. As long as you stayed, they controlled the game. But what happens when you stop playing? What happens when you decide that your peace, your happiness, your future is more important than a toxic cycle that was never going to change? That's when everything shifts. Because the moment you walk away, they feel it. The energy changes. The power dynamic flips. And suddenly, the one who seemed in control, the one who seemed untouchable, is scrambling. Because they never expected you to leave. They thought they had you locked in. And maybe they did for a while. Maybe they convinced you that you would never find better, that you were the problem, that they were the best you would ever get. But deep down, didn't you always know the truth? Didn't you always feel that nagging voice inside whispering, you deserve more than this? But let's be honest, walking away isn't just about physically leaving. It's about emotionally detaching. It's about breaking the mental chains they placed on you. Because even after you leave, the real battle begins in your mind. That's where they still try to control you. That's where they hope to keep you stuck. And that's where you must win. Because if they can't get you to come back, they'll try to live inside your head. They'll try to make you second guess yourself. They'll try to keep you angry, hurt, bitter, anything that keeps you emotionally tied to them. But what if, instead of staying stuck in resentment, you let go? What if, instead of waiting for closure, you created your own? Because the reality is, they will never give you the closure you're looking for. They will never admit to the damage they caused. They will never suddenly wake up and say, you were right, I treated you horribly and I regret everything. That's not how this works. And the longer you wait for that moment, the longer you keep yourself trapped. But let me ask you, why do you need their acknowledgement to validate your pain? Why do you need them to confirm what you already know? You don't. And the second you stop seeking their validation, the second you stop needing them to understand what they did to you, that is when you truly break free. But this is where they panic. Because the moment they realize you are no longer accessible, no longer waiting, no longer looking back, that's when they try to pull you back in. Maybe they act like nothing happened, sending a casual, hey, hope you're doing well, as if they didn't tear you apart. Maybe they act like they've changed, suddenly saying all the right things, making all the right promises. Or maybe they try to make you jealous, parading a new love around just to see if they can get a reaction. But let me ask you, haven't they done this before? And didn't you fall for it last time? But not this time. Because this time you see the pattern. This time you understand the game. This time you realize that their attempts to win you back have nothing to do with love and everything to do with control. Because if they truly cared, they wouldn't have treated you like an option. If they truly valued you, they wouldn't have risked losing you in the first place. And now that you're gone, now that they see you thriving without them, they suddenly care. That's not love. That's desperation. And that is not your problem. But here's the hardest part, the silence. The space where they once existed in your life. Because even though they hurt you, even though they drained you, they were familiar. And walking away means walking into the unknown. It means rebuilding. It means facing yourself without distraction. And that can be terrifying. But let me ask you, when was the last time you truly put yourself first? When was the last time you focused on your growth, your happiness, your dreams without their influence weighing you down? And here's the truth, walking away isn't just about leaving them. It's about rediscovering yourself. Because somewhere along the way you lost pieces of who you were. You became someone who settled, someone who tolerated, someone who accepted things you swore you never would. But now you get to reclaim yourself. Now you get to rewrite your story. Now you get to choose what kind of life you actually want to live. And doesn't that excite you? Doesn't it make you wonder what's possible when you stop wasting energy on someone who never deserved you? But this is where the real challenge begins, because healing is not instant. Some days you'll feel powerful, unstoppable. Other days the doubts will creep in. You'll wonder if you made the right choice. You'll wonder if they really did love you in their own way. And in those moments you'll be tempted to look back, to check their social media, to just see how they're doing. But let me ask you, has anything good ever come from that? Has anything you've seen ever made you feel better? Or has it only pulled you back into a place of pain? Because this is what winning truly looks like: not proving anything to them, not making them regret losing you, not showing them what they missed out on. Winning is about you. It's about waking up without anxiety. It's about looking in the mirror and recognizing yourself again. It's about knowing that your happiness is no longer dependent on anyone else. And when you finally reach that place, when you finally feel that peace, you'll realize something powerful. You didn't lose anything when you walked away. They did. Because they lost someone who truly cared. They lost someone who gave them chances they never deserved. They lost someone who would have loved them deeply if only they had been capable of receiving it. And now, standing in your power, standing in your peace, you finally understand walking away was never losing. Walking away was winning on your terms.